On this episode, nutrients in the soil are there, but are they in the plant available form? Markets are climbing at an all-time high, and there's a new bill proposed in the Iowa House of Representatives to the Agricultural Committee. Joe has compiled a list of jokes this week you won't want to miss.
Hi, this is Joe Mershman. Welcome to Cup of Joe, episode number 24, season 3. Today we have our regulars, Tommy and Turk and Ben. And Ben, we always start with you. What do you got for us today?
We're a little bit past the time frame of like fall applied fertilizers and stuff, but there was a good article out from VASF Ag Labs on how to interpret different soil tests and stuff. So for anybody that didn't get their fertilizer applied or is still looking at soil analysis and trying to figure out, what direction they need to take things, they had a pretty good article about how to read soil tests in drought conditions. And there was plenty of that happened this year, whether you're in central or western Iowa or as you move west. There's definitely a lot of drought conditions that can affect soil types. So I just wanted to talk about a few of the different things. They talk about when you're looking at your soil tests, you're going to see lower potassium and phosphorus levels because a lot of that stuff gets tied up in the residue levels. So when you're looking at stuff and, you may want to have to go back a couple different soil tests to see, if you're trending where you think your P and K ought to be based off what your yields were this past year. Definitely take a look at that because those levels could be significantly lower because we're having a lot of tie-up because of lack of moisture in the soil. Those particles, those nutrients bind tighter to the soil colloids and they're not in solution, and it's really hard to be able to pull those amounts out. So be careful when you're applying your P and K. Nitrogen is another one that if it's not in solution, it's really hard to measure. Based off, this would be a really good year to look at removal rates and your yields and kind of figure that in, because more than likely you're going to have a nitrogen credit left over. So when you're doing your late spring nitrate tests, when you're looking at those soil results, we're probably going to have more nitrogen in the soil than what we originally would look at in a normal year under normal rainfall conditions. pH is another one that's going to be tied up. It could be 0.1 to 0.3 units lower, so don't go out and spend a bunch of money on lime and mess up your whole rotation on things if your pH is lower than what you originally would anticipate because of drought.
Just my experience not knowing that, it seemed like the year after drought the yields are always really good, and it could be just because of you put your normal fertilizer on and you had a fertilizer credit out there because you're understated, so
right.
Makes sense.
Yep.
We talked about if you got to have moisture for the plant to be able to utilize the fertilizer that you did apply even last year. So without that, you're going to have a bigger carryover from that as well. So I think what you're saying, Ben, is if you see your soil test and there's quite a bit of a change from what you're normally seeing, if you're having a good fertilizer program and you see a change, don't get too excited about it.
Right. Kind of keep on the same rate and maybe be, don't be over applying to try to fix those, because on a normal rainfall year, those numbers are going to be higher than what you would have seen this year. So that's basically what I had this week. So
Thanks, Ben.
Very interesting.
Turk, what do you got?
Well, I don't know where to start, Joe. Obviously the markets this week took a huge jump. We had limit up corn and soybean prices after the report come out on Tuesday, and it was kind of a shocker for the market. The corn stocks were down slightly. Soybean stocks were down 10%, and wheat stocks were down 9%. They cut the average yield on corn by 3.3 bushels the acre. That's the largest change from December, or from the last report to this report, that I think they've ever had in history. So huge numbers, big shock to the trade, and caused the markets to react accordingly. We talked about in past shows that we're entering into a period of high volatility, and we definitely are seeing that. I think the average trading range on corn was like 23 cents high to low within the day.
Sure.
So it was it's pretty crazy times. Opportunities, again, if you know where your cost of production is, and there's record profitability levels here. We got the highest soybean prices we've had since 2014. Interesting enough, I talked about watch those new crop prices, in November soybeans for 2021, next year's crop, hit 1203 for a little period of time. They're below that right now, but they did hit that 1203 mark that I talked about. You'd have the opportunity. So corn is still 30 to 40 cents below that $5 level that I talked about on our predictions show. So keep an eye on stuff. The South America is still dry. They are getting some rains. So the question is now not so much will the rains help them as much as how much damage was done. And I think we'll know that. I think Brazil's still going to have a great crop, probably a record crop, but it's going to be less than what everybody thought was going to be. Argentina is definitely hurt quite a bit on both corn and soybeans. So it's volatile times. Don't just forget about the markets and say I'm going to not do anything because I'm just going to wait. You got to keep an eye on them.
Yep, you don't want to miss the opportunity to lock in a profit for next year, that's for sure. But usually when you have a supply side driven and demand and market, it does take a little while for it to get back in sync, I guess you might say.
Other things to keep an eye on, because our prices are going up, ethanol demand they're going to have to cut back. Most ethanol plants right now are probably break even or a loss. They're not going to be able to sustain that. They'll have to cut production. Our production for last year on ethanol was down 10 to 15%, and our stocks are higher than they have been. So we have to cut back on ethanol production, and at these high prices, that's going to do it.
Yeah, we'll start getting into a rationing mode, no
Yep.
question about it. So anyhow, well, at least we have a different problem than we did a year ago. We were looking at low prices and trying to figure out how to get to profitability. Now we're saying, okay, how much can I maximize my profit now? So that's a great place to be, though.
Well, we have to get this economy back and moving again before ethanol is going to see a big recovery, and that's probably not going to happen until the end of the year or first part of next year.
Well, with the vaccine out now, we're hearing that by June, most people that want the vaccine will be able to get it, and we open up this economy, and then you're going to start creating more demand again. So these markets could stay strong for a while, but watch the funds. They are record long, so when they start taking their profits, they're going to make things change a little bit.
Yep.
So good. So exciting times for farmers in many ways. Many ways. Tommy, I see you're looking at something very intently.
Yes, I actually Turk gave me this morning, and this is something we're going to want to watch. There's a class action suit that alleges companies conspired against farmers' interests. So
that's the chemical companies?
Yeah, so this was in class action complaint was filed in the Southern District of Illinois on January 8th. The plaintiff is a Barbara Piper. Basically, she's claiming that the existing distribution process maintains super competitive crop input prices by denying farmers accurate product information, including pricing information. So this is probably going to be a little bit of an uphill battle for her, though. In this, we'll see how it kind of plays out, but it could set a precedent for the future on how some of these crop inputs are sold directly to the farmer. So in some of the defendants, the complaint names as defendants is Bayer, Corteva, BASF, Syngenta, Cargill, Winfield Solutions, CHS, Nutrien, Growmark, Simplot, to name a few. So it could carry a lot of weight, and we're going to see how this plays out. So
this is
got to put it on your radar here.
Antitrust type suit, then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which if anybody's ever seen lawsuits like that, that's a 10-year deal, probably.
Yeah. It'll take a long time for that to go through, and there'll be obviously lots of the defendants are going to have lots of lawyers to stretch this out for a long time. But it seems to be this day and age that everybody wants to sue to try and change change the marketplace.
The system,
Yeah.
And that's what I was saying too. I mean, like I said, it's going to set a precedent. If it goes through, it's going to set a precedent on how we sell inputs.
Virtually every farmer will be able to, if that prevails, virtually every farmer will be able to participate.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have to keep an eye on that one, but it's just in its infancy right now. I mean, it's not even scheduled for.
It was just filed
hearing
last
it,
Friday,
yeah.
so
It's a long way away. But.
And I had a couple other announcements. The Iowa Ag Expos coming up, which is formerly known as the Iowa Power Show, up at Wells Fargo Arena in Hy-Vee Hall in Des Moines, Iowa. Those dates are February 2nd through the 4th, and we'll be up there in the same spot just after the annex there in Hy-Vee Hall. So, and then one other announcement. Seth and Sarah Elsner had their baby on my birthday, January 12th, last Tuesday. So it was they named her Kennedy Grace Elsner. So I thought that was
named
very
after
nice.
one of our soybeans.
There we go.
How appropriate.
Now that is a loyal salesman.
That's right. That's right. Anyhow, we noticed this week at the Iowa Legislative there was a bill that was proposed in the Ag Committee to ban the application and sale of dicamba herbicide in the Iowa legislative process. So it's in committee, probably won't make it out of committee, but the fact that one of the representatives wrote up a bill to ban dicamba tells that there's a lot of scrutiny going on about the application of that product. But anyhow, that's what we saw in Iowa, which we were kind of shocked when we saw that. But what else are they going to ban, I guess? But right now, we don't anticipate it's going to make it out of committee. So I don't think anybody has to worry about it, but it does set some type of notice about be careful if you're using dicamba to make sure you follow the labels and things, because it could become a reality.
It seems like those kind of suits are getting a little more weight behind them, especially with as years go on and the issues that came from the Bader Peach Farm. It's starting to get a little more
front and center.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know if our listeners know, but next week Ben won't be here. He's getting married a week from today, Saturday.
Dum dum dum.
And obviously, us married guys, we have to pass along a little advice to Ben. Since he's taken on a wife, and things are going to change a little bit. And so my corny jokes of the day are going to be wife jokes, you might say, or marriage jokes, I should say. So this one here is outvoted 1-1 by my wife again. My wife always compromises. I admit I'm wrong, and she agrees with me. Okay. Every time you talk to your wife, you got to remember this. This conversation may be recorded for training and quality purposes. Now, here's another one, Ben. The best way to remember your wife's birthday is to forget it once. Okay? Another thing, too, Ben, when it comes to marriage. There's 2 times when a man doesn't understand a woman. Before marriage and after marriage. Okay? And here's another one is a good tip. You should only argue with your wife when she's not around. Okay? Now, this one here is the 5 most essential words for a healthy, vital relationship. I apologize, and you're right. Okay? And the last one I'd like to say is, why did the bee get married?
I have no idea.
Because he found his honey. So we wish you the best, you and Morgan, and congratulations. And we'll miss you next week, but we know you got better and bigger things to accomplish.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay. All right. We'll see you next week. As always, please be safe, stay healthy, and thank you for your business. Take care.